Hey, what's up, guys? Little man with a big opinion here. So, I'm going to leave the treadmill at about a 1.5 mile pace. Uh, Not because I'm going to get super out of breath. I might turn it up just a little bit more, just so it feels kind of normal. But I don't want it to get too loud while we're sitting here doing some talking. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to step on sides, I'm going to turn sideways. I've got a pack on. I've got a 32-ounce water bottle, a 48-ounce water bottle. Those are chock full. I've got a sleeping bag, got a couple MREs. Put a 5-pound weight in there. I've got, a little survival hatchet. Just kind of tossing some gear in the bag to add some weight. I put my flick on, which the only real attachments that I have are, or the only thing I've added to it at the moment is I've got a 4 magazine pouch on this side, and if you haven't noticed it by now, I've got my Baofeng on my backpack digging into my ear here, so I'm going to take that part out first. And I've got, my AR. So I'm technically carrying 5 magazines. I guess I can also say I've got a boonie hat on with a headlamp. Got the treadmill set to maximum elevation. And, I'm wearing a pair of jeans and some hiking shoes. Why am I doing all of this? First and foremost, this is really good exercise. You turn your treadmill to its maximum elevation, and you do anything, which, before I keep going, I guess I can tell my watch that I'm doing this. My heart rate's sitting at about 105. So walking on an incline where you get your heart rate into that, 125 to 150 beats per minute, you're going to burn way more calories, and you can do this for a much longer sustained period of time than you could running. Yes, you can accomplish this same thing outside where you don't have to spend money on a treadmill. And then it becomes infinitely harder the more weight that you add. So I am getting some cardio in, and I can feel myself starting to sweat. It's about 75 in our house because our AC isn't working. Hopefully the guy is going to get out here tomorrow and get it fixed. But, this is also, helping me be a better prepper. Doing this walk, even if I was just carrying my rifle and my flick, I've got 5 magazines in my rifle. The sling is definitely probably the most important piece of equipment that I've got on right now. Because if I was having to hold this, my arms are going to get tired very quickly. But, this also partially answers that age-old meme where, dude's got, a $4,500 rifle and an okay-ish amount of ammunition, but they never work out. It's just a fat guy with money. And then you've got the person that, everything I put into my rifle, about $800. I would increase that number a lot more because I've got about 25 magazines now. But I've shot a lot of rounds through this rifle. So, wearing a pair of jeans, hiking shoes, just a regular old t-shirt because I didn't want to change anything else. But this is getting in the steps, quite literally. This is building the endurance with the kit that you have available. Wear a boonie cap if you're gonna wear a boonie cap. Wear a baseball hat if you got that. I guess I could have tossed on the ACH for this. It's nothing special. It's just an old ACH that I've had. But getting the steps in, getting time under, carrying the rifle, getting time in with the gear that you plan on, this is kind of soft scale LARPing in a way. After I put all the gear in my pack, I tossed a 5-pound dumbbell in here just to increase the weight a little bit. Everything that I've got on me is about 35 pounds worth of stuff. It might not be the most optimal stuff, but it's what I've got. Some of it left over from my Army days. The backpack I'm wearing is just a Walmart, Ozark Trail pack that I bought, for school to keep my laptop in. And now I don't take my laptop to school, so it's just a pack that I put gear in. It's also, kind of figuring out what works. One thing that I like about this backpack, and I've noticed, it doesn't interfere with where I put my extra magazines. But, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, kind of playing around with stuff, I slid the Baofeng in this little loop here on the backpack. Well, the backpack straps kind of, curve at an angle and attach up at the top. So they're pointing this way instead of straight up. If they're pointing straight up, that antenna, probably would have gone this way instead of trying to, poke a hole in my ear. So you can see the stuff that everyone's done. Put my magazines here, put my IFAK in this spot, my radio in this spot, my admin stuff here. And that might not work for you. Putting your stuff on and actually, putting in the steps is going to determine, hey, this thing should go here, that thing should go there. My torso is smaller than the guy that set their stuff up that way, and it's causing a hot spot. It's rubbing in this area. And then I'm just doing it on a treadmill in my house because I don't want to deal with, the panicked people calling the cops. I'm not doing anything illegal, but, I would rather focus on my workout and, just get the steps in, get through it. We've been going for, 6 minutes or so. I can already feel the sweat building up. It doesn't help that I'm sitting here chit-chatting as well, but, my heart rate's at 121 beats per minute. I'm not going very fast. That's what the incline helps out with. I finally bumped it up to 2 miles an hour, which is a very nice, slow, relaxing pace. And, all of our fitness levels are at different points. I would rather you walk laps around your house with nothing on than do absolutely nothing. I would rather you just carry the one firearm that you have and make laps around your house. Do sprints back and forth in your backyard. Anything that is going to make you better. you know, in the prepping community, the Minuteman stuff, you know, a lot of guys really like to talk about, you know, the gear, and you know, that's all good and fun. But whew, had, you know, got it up to about 129. That's all good and fun. You know, got a nice little layer of sweat. I guess I can stop the watch. You know, we did right about 8 minutes. That'd have been, I literally did one lap around the track, sitting here talking with y'all. It's partially, quite literally, because our AC doesn't work. So anything is going to up that. Like, I can sit here and show you, you know, it's off. But it's 75 in here. And now I'm gonna make laps around my house, and you can you know, see what we've gotten done and what we haven't gotten done. You know, this is time in your gear. All of our gear is different. You know, I talk about being a budget prepper. You know, my AR is by no means the fanciest thing out there. I'm wearing a Ozark Trail backpack. I'm wearing a digital cam flick. It might not look very digital cam because it is very, very well used, and I have dyed it before. Oh, gotta take the rifle off if I'm gonna take the backpack off. But I mean, that 8 minutes can probably be, you know, I need to cut my straps shorter, but that 8 minutes could possibly be more cardio than you've done all week. You know, I already feel so much better taking the backpack off, probably because it's got a lot of weight in it. You know, we're born to do hard things. Put all of your gear together, stick it in a backpack. Let's see, now my watch wants to tell me what zones I'm in and stuff like that. Which, that's a good thing for having a Garmin watch, is it's going to tell you, you know, what you did. Time in zone. Zone 2 for 8 minutes. I'm going to take that as a win because zone 2 is the zone that you burn the most calories in. You know, my watch said in that 8 minutes I burned about 40 calories. You know, we all start somewhere. I have really, really short legs. The maximum that I really put this up to is about 3.1 miles per hour. I get a lot more effort in doing sprints and things like that. Go away, cat. You're messing with the tripod. But this is, you know, what we have to work with. This treadmill was a few $100 off of Facebook Marketplace. Yes, it's worth way more than that. You don't need the treadmill. You can just make laps around your house. You can do sprints up and down in your backyard. You can walk around your neighborhood. You know, any increase of weight is going to make it harder. It's going to make you sweat more. It's going to build your muscles better than just your starting body weight. But I would make the argument that any physical exercise is better than zero physical exercise. You know, if your average steps in a week is less than 70,000, set your goal to try to hit that 70,000 mark. If the last time you ran a mile was, you know, high school PE, set a goal to run 1 mile a week. Once you get comfortable doing that for a few weeks, you know, up it to 2 days out of the week. You know, start doing timed run. You know, I'm not the fitness influencer or anything like that. You know, I'm not gonna try to sell you a fitness plan because mine's all over the place. I have a 2-year-old that demands a lot of my attention. Sometimes my working out is I pick the dumbbells up, I do a couple of sets of, shoulder press, curls, and, I've got the little pull-up bar that hangs in a doorway. Sometimes it's doing a couple of sets of push-ups during my conference at work. Sometimes my walk is walking to the coffee shop with the family, and I put a backpack on with some weight. I by no means work out consistently, these 4 times during the week, 6 to 7 a.m. or, 7 to 8 p.m. Sometimes my workout is before work. I manage to wake up at 5:30 and actually stay up. A lot of the times it's after, right now it's 9 o'clock. Thankfully the kid went to sleep really easy tonight. And I was able to, get a little something in. I started sweating. After I turned this video off, like I said, I'm going to use the dumbbells, use this machine a little bit, maybe do some squats. Put in 15-20 minutes of work. That 15 to 20 minutes is way more than 0. I think any physical fitness I can get in a day is better than 0. And you should think the same way. So if it's filling a backpack up with, dog food and canned goods to add some weight, do it. If the only firearm you have is a 12 gauge shotgun, walk around with it. That is more weight than you're probably used to carrying. If you've got the rucksack and all the, different cool gear and everything, awesome. Carry all that stuff. Toss something in that weighs a few extra pounds. If you're used to doing, 5 miles of rucking, bump it up to 5.5. Get better every single day. But for now, I'm going to go finish a workout. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do all those sort of things. And until then, I'll catch you in the next one.